Turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 2. I want to begin with verse 11. Paul, in the middle of his discourse here, writes, "So that no advantage would be taken of us by Satan, for we are not ignorant of his schemes." And today we look at some of his scheming that he tries to bring about. And it's a rather, I think, clever approach, and it's certainly not my own approach. I'd like to brag about it, but a couple of weeks back on our private Facebook page, there was a post made where somebody asked ChatGPT what they would do to drag young Christians away from Christ. And I'm glad Megan posted that because I'm going to plagiarize it. But I did use a little different of a prompt, and so got just a little different of an answer, but not substantially different. Now, below that, somebody else posted a strategy for Satan drawing away older Christians. I believe that was Carrie. And I said, I'm going to plagiarize that one too. It was good. So that may be on next week's schedule. So I went into ChatGPT and I did a prompt that roughly said, what would you do to keep young Christians, keep young people from Christ, or to drag them away from Christ? And it gave me these 8 points. And I thought, I kind of like that. Let's see where it goes. It's kind of modern. And yet, if I may say at the same time, there's nothing new under the sun. So the first thing Chat said, if I were the devil, I would twist their identity. I would tell them that their value lies in their appearance. Ooh, think about that one a second. That's not brand new, is it? Their achievements and likes. You know, how much approval are you getting on social media? That kind of thing. Are you rising to the top? Or are you sitting at the bottom and the countless ignored? That idea. Genesis 1:27. I don't think we need to turn there. That's where he said he created man in his own image, male and female. He created them. And we are the image of God. But what Satan wants us to do is forget that we're the image of God. And he wants us to think that we were just an accident. We just came out of a mud puddle, or we used to be monkeys, or whatever this story is. Whatever he can do to cheat us of our identity, that is exactly what he wants to do. That is part of his strategy. I do have to repeat the old Zig Ziglar line that I like so much. He said, we teach kids that they came from monkeys, then we get on to them when they act like a bunch of animals. You are going to act consistent with your true identity. He said it would do the sexual confusion thing and teach gender as a spectrum. Now, those of us who are my age and older, and you go back to the 60s and so on, you would think, oh, that would never, ever, ever happen. How many times have you seen the news clip? It's usually political, and it's some kind of group hearing, and some conservative will say, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, can you tell me, is there a biological difference between a man and a woman? And they, with a straight face as can be, will say, no, sir, there is no difference. That's adults talking. Satan's strategy has made inroads that just boggle our mind today. It kills common sense. And adults ought to know better. Now, I'll cut kids a little bit of slack because they're going through those confused formative years. But adults ought to know better. But I want us to understand that Satan is wanting to get into your kid's head as early as he can get into it and start distorting their identity at whatever level it can. It may not be, on the sexual level, it may be the role of male and female. It just may be, I'm no good, I'm horrible, I'm a failure. And to reject their own unique identity. Then there's more anxiety, there's more depression, there's more mental challenges. You can Google this one and you can find it for an absolute fact that's out there. His strategy is working. It is that diabolical genius that you go, wow, that's good stuff. Now, it's wrong. It's on the wrong team, obviously. But what he has them doing is building on a foundation of that ever-shifting sand. What is right nowadays? What is wrong nowadays? Now you and I have our personal ideas, but I want you to think of our culture as a whole. There was a time where certain things were a sin, they were wrong, you did not do them, and those people who did them were recognized by our culture as being outside the norm. That's not a healthy practice. Where is that line today? Does that line even exist today? And who does Satan use most of all to propagate, to spill that, spread that, just that craziness? And it's the young people. Now there are a few old people mixed in, you got to admit that. So John 8:32, you know it. You shall know the truth. The truth will make you free. That's what we want. Truth is not a restriction. Truth liberates us. But Satan has done a wonderful job kind of flipping that over on its head. And I think it's even more impressive that he has managed to sell it and sell it to not just one generation, not just two, but probably going back three would be pretty easy to count. So what we want to do is we want to counter that. We want our kids to know you're not an accident. You are the image of God. And he made you in your mother's womb, Psalm 139. And he is working for your good. And to find the best, most fulfilling life you can find is in that straight and narrow road walking with him. You want to live a good life? You want to get to the end of life and go, yeah, there were some ups and downs, but that was pretty good. Then the way to do that is to walk the straight and narrow road. No alcoholic ever got to the end of life and said, well, I wish I could have one more beer. Well, humor aside, you probably did wish for one more beer, but that wasn't a fulfilling life. The person who's been married and divorced 5, 6, 7, 8 times probably doesn't say, boy, I wish I'd done that just a few more times. Wish I'd got to marry a dozen, even dozen or something. It's not the fulfilling life. Satan, if ChatGPT were Satan, he would feed their distractions. Let's get them more noise, more notifications, more scrolling, more videos. And now I got to walk a little careful line here. I do not want to take your technology away from you. I do not want to take your iPhone away from you. I think technology is awesome. I'm a GPT fan myself. I think this is the way things are moving in the workplace and in our communities, our culture. And we as Christians need to get a hold of it and learn how to hang on to it. I do think if we take the stand that we just say it's all evil, it's all wrong, nobody needs a cell phone, we just took ourselves out of the conversation altogether. I think we need to minimize our cell phone, our screen time use. And that's not just a conservative Christian idea. In fact, there are school districts implementing rules where screen time on personal devices is limited within the school time. And I think there's some wisdom of that. Your notifications, I'd turn those all off. I've got my phone, but you're not going to hear my phone ding 14 times during dinner because somebody notified me about this or that. Scrolling, okay, scrolling can be fun sometimes. Videos can be fun sometimes. We're not anti-entertainment, little relaxation, that kind of thing. But my goodness, does it get to be all consuming. And it just distracts and distracts and distracts, and it doesn't feel evil. The thing about being distracted is it feels like, well, I'm busy right now. That sounds kind of productive, doesn't it? I'll get to it a little bit later. And then we get into the postponement game, which has been preached upon for generation and generation. So Mark 4 and 19, let's turn there for a moment. We have this warning from Christ. Is it a little bit of an irony? We're getting ready to read a verse that's 2,000 years old while we talk about an issue that is very modern. Or is it very modern? Verse 19. So he's explaining the parable. And in verse 19, he says, let's go back to verse 18. And others are the ones on whom the seed was sown among the thorns. These are the ones who have heard the word. But the worries of the world and the deceitfulness of riches and the desire for other things enters in and choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. Did you catch it? The desire for other things enters in, and it chokes the word. And that's where we get into trouble. Again, not trying to take our technology away from us. I would tell you that if you just really enjoy holding your phone in your hand, which I'm not going to argue with that one, then part of your screen time, let it be your daily Bible reading. There you go. Now you still got your phone, you still got the comfort of your device in your hand, but doing something a little more productive with it, at least for 15 minutes or so. But don't let all the distractions come in and choke out the word, and that is Satan's strategy. And the distraction, incidentally, does not have to be evil and horrid. You could sit and, pilfer away your time doing some of the most harmless stuff you can imagine. But if you're not rightly dividing the word of the Lord, then you're missing it. So Satan will tell him, read your Bible later. You got time later. You're too busy right now. You got other things to do. And this, I just double checked this one. I went to Google and did my little standard double check, and I would encourage you to fact check it. But actually, it was just a tad over 7 hours. And I want you to let that soak in a second. The average teen spends more than 7 hours a day on screens, and the research said not counting screen time in a classroom under an instructive environment. This was just kids with their screen time doing what they want. I thought, how in the world does that work? Now, okay, averages, I get it. So that means some kids don't spend 7 hours a day on their screen time. I get that. But if we're talking about an average, that means some spend more than 7 hours a day. The average is 7. Where do they get that in? I couldn't do 7 hours a day random screen time. I don't have it. But let's say they get out of school at 3, don't go to bed till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And now what are we doing all day Saturday? And what are we doing all day Sunday? And the averages start to add up. And this, again, this isn't a religious source that says 7 hours a day. This is a governmental source. This is a research source. And it's like, man, has the devil got this one down solid or what? 7 hours a day. Psalms 46:10, I will not turn there. Jot it down if you want to note. He said, be still and know that I'm God. That's what it's about. But we can't be still and know that he is God, even as adults, if we're caught up in that endless vortex of scrolling, texting, just playing around. Now, again, let me be careful. I'm not trying to take that away. I do not want you to feel that every time you open up your phone and you look at something cute, you feel guilty because, oh, I could have used that 30 seconds to do something more constructive. But at some point, we do have to feel guilty. Now, I'll let you decide where that is for you. Can you do 7 hours a day, mindless screen time, and not feel guilty? I'm happy to leave that between you and the Lord. I personally could not do 7 hours of mindless screen time and not feel guilty. That's just where I am. But somewhere, we have to admit Satan's strategy to get people busier and busier, moving faster and faster, and more involved until they have no time for God is working like a charm. And it is. And if you want to stretch it back, I would say we can go back to the 70s, long before we had screen time, and we could start seeing Satan make inroads in various avenues in that direction. Then he said, if I were the devil, I would glorify self-expression, not self-control. I would tell him to be authentic. Just follow your heart. What do you feel like? What do you feel like doing? Where do you feel like going? Just be you. Be a free spirit. Now that's an old term, isn't it? Be a free spirit. We're going back to the 1970s now, but there's nothing new under the sun. All he does is he takes the same stuff, and we'll see it a little bit later, that he began with in the Garden of Eden, and he just keeps repackaging it. He takes the same thing, he sticks it in a different box, puts a different wrapper on it, And the new generation thinks they've discovered something new. And when you start looking at humanity, there is nothing new. This be authentic, follow your heart. It's been there forever. And our culture currently glorifies it and holds it up as a badge of honor. It's something noble, especially if it's viewed as anti-establishment kind of things. Galatians 5:22. Let's read that quickly. Now, this is the fruits of the Spirit, and I know some of you have that memorized. Galatians 5:22. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, reading from the New American Standard, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Now, if you're old King James, you'll have the word temperance there. Temperance is just an old way of saying self-control. Against such things, there is no law. Now, I want you to look at that again. Where did this idea of self-expression, where's that at? Where's the idea of just do your own thing on the list? You know what made it on the list was self-control or temperance, because that's the way to build something. That's the way to build a life that takes you into the areas that you want to go. Proverbs 14:12 says there's a way that seems right, but the end of that way is the way of death. And that is what Satan is pushing. It is that thing where young people who don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge of life, think, oh, I found it. I've discovered the way that's going to make me happy, and I'm going to be able to just live the life I've always wanted to live, so on and so forth. And they get on down that path and they find out, oh, no, wait a minute, that wasn't what I thought it was. And now here's the tragic part. So many people get so invested in that journey that it's very, very hard to come out of it. They just can't. They just won't. And when he gets them young, I believe that I'm trying to remember my religious order among the Catholics. I believe it was the Benedictines that used to say, give us a child. Actually, they said a son until he is 7, and he will be ours forever. The idea is those first 7 years, and they were not too far off the mark. The way a child is indoctrinated in the first 7 years of life sets the course of their life far more than we want to admit. And now here's the scary part. How many of us have been out at the restaurant or what have you and seen the 18-month-old, the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old being babysat by a device? And this preceded phones. How many times did preachers preach against people letting the TV be their babysitter? Now we're going back to the 1980s, right? But that was preached against because you let TV indoctrinate the kids. Now it's devices, smartphones, tablets, and what have you. Now again, we're not trying to say you can't have a TV, although there is one religious group that does that, but we're not going to go that far. And we're not trying to say you can't have your devices. What we're trying to say is, look, there's a lot of stuff coming across there. And our young people are the ones that are really indoctrinating. Those are the ones they're trying to get a hold of. Just like it's always been said, give me one generation. Let me control one generation, and I'll control the future for a lot longer than you realize. Proverbs 28:26 says, he who trusts in his own heart is a fool. Wait a minute. The devil comes along and says, no, it's all about self-expression. It's not about self-control. I want you to just go be what you feel like being, and that's where you're going to find your happiest life. No, that's not where you're going to find your happiest life. But that's what he says. And those who trust in their own heart, the Bible said they're a fool. Matthew 16:25. Whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. So the pursuing of shallow gratifications, as though this is the purpose of life, that's what we're missing. There's nothing wrong with a birthday party now and then. A lot of us are planning on going out today and celebrating Mother's Day and, not make mama cook and we're going to sit around. We're going to have a lot of time. And admittedly, a lot of that's going to be pretty shallow. Like chips and dip. Not a lot of substance there, but it sure does taste good, right? We're not saying you can never, never, ever have a little bit of fun and waste a little bit of time, but we are saying that is not the foundation for young people to build a life on and pursue shallow self gratification just to get down the road a ways and find out I've wasted 15 years of my life. That's a sad place to be. It's just not working. Now, Proverbs 25 and 28. Let's see what I'm thinking. I'm talking about ChatGPT. That's right now in 2025. Proverbs would have been about 3,000 years ago. I'm a little bit off there, but that's close enough. And that long ago, Solomon said it this way, 28. Like a city that is broken and without walls is a man who has no control over his spirit. Same strategy. Satan has been using it against our people, everybody, since Solomon's time, and I think he himself was good at that. Jeremiah 17:9 tells us the heart is desperately wicked. And yet Satan comes along and says to our young people, trust your heart. Just trust your heart. Oh, it's desperately wicked, but that's just the preacher talking. You can figure this out on your own. Now, once he separates them from the herd, so to speak, he's got them. Number 4, undermine biblical authority. Okay, this goes all the way back to the very beginning. Remember what Satan said to Eve? Did God really say? And so we question biblical authority, we bring it into doubt, and we're going to say, it's just a dusty old dead book. That's all that is. That book's 2,000 years old. Well, this is 2025. You need to get up to date with things because that old book isn't going to work now. Now, nobody ever really stops to figure it out. Let's use marriage as a quick example. So Ephesians 5, verse 22 through 33, tells the woman her role in marriage and the man his role in marriage. And he says, do this, honor one another. Well, that's an extreme oversimplification of a longer text, but we're going to leave it there for right now. Now, that's 2,000 years old. And if a woman will honor her husband and a husband will cherish his wife, and they will actually literally do what the Bible says do, not give it lip service, but literally practice in the daily living of their life as best they can, they're going to have an awesome marriage. He's going to come home and she's going to see him walk in or vice versa. And their eyes are going to light up. I'm glad you made it home safe. And they're going to walk in the door thinking, I'm glad to be here. It's a whole lot better situation than you sitting there in your recliner and she walks in and you go, well, my time's over. Or she's sitting out in the vehicle going, I got to go in. Find your courage. Come on, you can do it. Got to go in the house. And not wanting to go into the house, That's a horrible way to do it. It's not a dusty old dead text. It is old, yes. The oldest parts are 3,500 years old, but it's definitely not dead. So the devil comes along and says, no, you need to redefine that so it fits your own self-expression. Look, 2 Peter 3:16 talked about those who twist the word to their own destruction, and that's all the Satan wants to do. And it doesn't have to be the biggest, most obvious twist. He just needs them to direct their own steps. Now, how many of you just thought of Jeremiah 10:23? It's not in man who walks to direct his own steps. And yet that's exactly what Satan is telling people. Now look, modern science says a child's brain is not even fully baked until they're 25 to 30. Insurance companies forever said you don't get your last insurance break till you're 25. Well, why do you not get your last insurance break till you're 25? Because you're still growing up. You're still developing. You're still learning. Your brain's still trying to figure things out. And the devil comes along and tells a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, no, you can handle this. You got it. Wow. Now that's crazy. But that's our battle. Unless we want to know what he's up to so we can do our counter work. So he makes all of this stuff look real thoughtful and compassionate. He's freeing them from the old stodgy crusty old teachings of the Bible so they can really explore life. No, it doesn't work that way. Matthew 24:35 says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. What Satan is not telling folks is you never, ever, ever get away from the Word of God. Let me say that one more time. You never, ever, ever, ever get away from the Word of God. Sooner or later, you encounter it. Obviously, I'm going to tell you to encounter it much sooner, like starting today and living that discipline. Number 5, promote spiritual but not religious. Man, I hear this one in podcasts. People say it in different words, but they're all spiritual, but they're anti-religious. And they say it as though it's an honor. They have some real substance or something or another. It's really open-minded. They say you can have God on your own terms. No, you can't. You can pretend to have God on your own terms, but you cannot have God on your own terms. Titus 1:16. Titus 1 and verse 16. I think this applies quite well to, I call it SBNR, spiritual but not religious. They profess to know God, but their deeds deny him, being detestable and disobedient and worthless for any good deed. Oh, they claim it. Oh, yeah, I know God. No, you don't. You know God, you walk with God. So Psalms 119, you know that one. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. And Ecclesiastes 12:13, it's the whole duty of man to fear God and keep his commandments. And if I went on to verse 14, he said he's going to bring everything into judgment, even the secret things. Spiritual but not religious, no. I'm sorry, it didn't work. You cannot have God on your own terms, even though the devil is selling that quite heartily. I understand that there's some false religion out there that you need to get away from. I would not argue that. But you cannot have God on your own terms. You have God on his terms, or not at all. Number 6, going to magnify hypocrisy in the church. Every time a member in good standing does something wrong, magnify it, highlight it, put it out there, multiply it. It wasn't just a little fault. It was a big fault. It was a big nasty thing. And it works. It works really well because Christians aren't perfect. No one bats 1,000. No one does every single thing right. No one says every single word right. Nobody does every single practice exactly the way somebody else thinks it should be done 100% of the time. It just doesn't work. Because we all, I think I got James 3:2 there, because we all stumble in many things, James 3:2. Or the proverb, I didn't put it up here, but he says the righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up. And that's the point. But as long as somebody wants to focus on the hypocrisy in the church, they can play that game pretty easy. It's not that hard to play. And then they say, well, if that's Christianity, I don't want anything to do with that. It's a tough spot to be in. Because now the person who says, well, if that's Christianity, I don't want anything to do with it. You go, well, why is it you don't want anything to do with it? Well, I don't want anything to do with it because they're nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. Okay, let me see if you're consistent with your rule. I'll agree that there's hypocrisy in the church. Wouldn't argue that point for a moment. Let me get on to it. But it isn't a church problem. It's a human problem. How many of you have had a doctor? They don't do this as much anymore, but they used to do it. He's 50 pounds overweight. He's got a pack of Marlboros in his front pocket, and he's telling you, you need to lose weight and quit smoking and exercise a little more. Ever been there? Oh, that looks like hypocrisy to me. How about you go down to the Walmart and the clerk double standard cheats you out of something? They just outright lie to you sometimes because they don't want to have to deal with the customer. Let's cut this thing short. We'll just tell them something, get them on out of here. Well, I ain't ever going back to Walmart again. If that's Walmart, I don't want nothing to do with Walmart. That's just a bunch of hypocrisy. And my doctor's just a bunch of hypocrisy. and banking institutions are full of hypocrisy. Where can I get away from hypocrisy? I can't do it. It's humanity. But isn't it funny how if there is any hypocrisy in the church, somebody can turn their back on that and walk away and think they have done something noble and great. And Satan plants that seed really, really early. The solution here is not telling our children that adults are perfect. The solution is to be honest. Adults are in training. We're a little further down the training. Hopefully we're doing a little better, but we're still in training. And sometimes you just have a bad day and you mess up. Nobody bats 1,000. Number 7, normalize sin and redefine it. That's what chat would do if chat were the devil. Call it freedom, love, self-expression, authenticity. Oh, yes. And the media, man, sin is the entertainment. It is just out there everywhere, and it is glorified, and it is nothing new. Of course, I'm going to use a really old one. I haven't seen a James Bond movie in forever. But James Bond, he opened up the story, and he was in bed with a woman that wasn't his wife. In fact, he didn't have a wife. Get halfway through the movie, where's he at again? Oh, same room. And you get to the end of the movie, where's he at again? What did the movie glorify? Yeah, that's what it does. It glorifies things. Vulgar language is glorified all over media. It's hard to find somebody that doesn't use vulgar language. It's a little hard to find podcasts that when somebody is being interviewed says a bad word, you get the beep. You just like, no, we're going to normalize it. We're going to redefine it. We're going to call greed just good, healthy ambition. We're going to call pride self-love. Those things sound a whole lot better. Isaiah 5:20, we do need to read that one. It's a simple verse, but man, does it bring the point home. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who substitute darkness for light and light for darkness, who substitute bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. There you go. They celebrate it, they promote it, they build their lives around it. One of the scary things is now in social media, one of the most, probably the most popular way for a young woman to get clicks and like on her social media is to show on public media what only her husband should be seeing in private. But it's built around it. Why? Because it sells. It draws attention. It's still the biggest thing on the media is pornography and pornography related, whether you want to call it soft or hardcore or what have you. And it's just all celebrated. Again, they just build their lives around it. And then if somebody opposes it, like a cranky old preacher like me, then it's hate speech. Then it's judging. You can't judge me. And man, they're off to the races as though they're doing something really grand and noble, never seeing, wait a minute, we're back to hypocrisy for a moment, because the people who advocate normalize sin and redefine it say you get to live life any way you want to live it. Just be authentic, be yourself, be true to yourself. But if you're going to be a conservative Christian, get out of here. We don't want anything to do with you. What happened to freedom and self-expression and authenticity? It's only allowed if you play by their rules. And if you don't respect their rules, then you're a bigot, you're a hater, you're just judging people, and on and on and on it goes. So they make opposing sin shameful. Look, I don't know exactly where this line is. We need to teach our kids and ourselves how to stand up and stand for the truth and be clear about where we stand without attacking an individual. Now, the problem here is anytime we have a disagreement, who gets hopped on? The conservative. That's the way it works. I wish I had the magical answer for you, so I could say, let your light shine. Let your light so shine before men they see your good works. Preach the gospel. Shout it from the housetops. Let out there and let the message roll. Preach the whole gospel. I wish I knew how to do that without the other side getting offended. I haven't figured it out yet, have you? The only answer I get right now is, we just shouldn't talk about those things. Excuse me? No, that's not what Paul said. We don't make opposing sin a shameful behavior. We are soldiers of Christ. We arise, we put our armor on. And we don't normalize it and we don't redefine it. And that is the ideology we want to pass on to our youth so they can pass it on to their youth and the next generation and the next generation. And somewhere down the line in 2050, 2075, 2102, there'll still be a conservative body of Christ's people in Jefferson County preaching the same book, chapter, and verse message. We got a long-term plan. And our final one, I'm running out of time. He says, there's no hurry. Enjoy your youth. You're young. Take life in. You can get spiritual later. And it sounds reasonable because delay is not an overt rebellion. Delay is just, delay. No, it's still disobedience, but they want to say your youth is all about exploring, figuring life out. Not commitment, not yet. Ecclesiastes 12:1 says, remember your Creator in the day of your youth. That's where we want to instill those values. James 4:14 says, our life's a vapor. We don't know when it's going to end. That's the scary part. Now and then you can be 16 and your life over. You can be 25 and your life be over. 42 and your life's over. You just don't know. On average, we get 70 to 80 years. I agree with that. Problem is, I don't know if I'm average or not. I do know I'm getting closer. Satan gives the false comfort of being open to faith without actually embracing it. I'm not against it. I'm going to get to it later on. That's for old people. Two young kids asked one to the other, said, why is your grandma always reading the Bible all the time? The other one said she's cramming for her final exam. Okay, I think it's a cute joke, but it's not the way to live life. So let's close. We have the light that overcomes. The battle's very real. Chat didn't tell us anything new. In fact, all Chat did was put in modern language what Bible writers have been talking about for 3,500 years. None of us are absolutely perfect. We're all in training. And as we travel together, that's what we want to remember. We're all training together. We're going to be as iron sharpens iron. We're going to help each other get better. And then there is a way to enjoy life that's very deep. It's the peace that passes understanding. It's a depth of life that you get toward the end and you go, yeah, I'd do that one again. That's what we want to pass on, not just to our kids, but to ourselves. I'm going to leave you with this verse. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? It's a good question. I'm going to close with what Brother D. Bowman used to say. If you miss heaven, you just miss all that there is. Let me say it one more time. If you miss heaven, you just miss all that there is. Look down your path. Is it leading to heaven? If so, stay on it. If not, it's time to make a change. If we can help you publicly, let us know. Well,